What's up, everybody? Hey, Tom Laird here, host of the Advice from a Call Center Geek podcast and founder of Expedia. For exceptional contact center outsourcing, trust Expedia. We're fully AI-driven, as all of you know, and can handle voice, email, chat, and all of your digital channels. Our 600-seat USA contact center is expert in healthcare, financial services, insurance, tech support, retail, and more. Experts on the NICE CX1 platform, we ensure seamless customer experiences. DM me or visit expediausa.com for more.
This is Advice from a Call Center Geek, a weekly podcast with a focus on all things call center. We'll cover it all from call center operations, hiring, culture, technology, and education. We're here to give you actionable items to improve the quality of yours and your customers' experience. This is an evolving industry with creative minds and ambitious people like this guy. Not only is his passion call center operations, but he's our host. He's the CEO of Expedia Interaction Marketing Group and the call center geek himself, Tom Laird.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the call center and contact center podcast. We try to give you some actionable items, take back in your contact center, improve the overall quality, improve the agent experience, hopefully improve the customer experience as well. I guess that's really the whole point of why we're here, right? So for those of you who do not know me by now, my name is Tom Laird. I am the CEO of Expedia Interaction Marketing. We're about a 500-seat contact center outsourcer located here in northwestern Pennsylvania, here in the States. Work for a variety of different companies, from financial services to retail to healthcare to tech support, and they handle any type of outsourced customer support, sales that customers need. Also, I'm the founder and CEO of AutoQA. OTTOQA.com. And AutoQA is an AI startup where we are fully scoring contact center QA calls with using AI. So I hope everybody's doing well. We here in Erie, PA, it's been frigid. We average about, at this point, I just saw this morning, about 80 inches of snow. To this point, we're already at 120 for the year. Last week was just brutally cold. This is the hard part, right? It's the February, March, trying to kind of get out of the rut here of getting to spring. But let's talk about what I'd like to discuss with you guys today. And it's something that, again, there's no book written on this. This is all kind of needs to be kind of sorted out. So just kind of want to put a couple thoughts into kind of what are the KPIs that, and how do they need to evolve in kind of this AI-centric world that we're living in most contact centers? You know, we've had, these core metrics of service level and handle time and really tracking the agent, right? And how do we do that now with AI? And is it the same metrics that we need, right? Or do things need to evolve? And I think they do need to evolve. And I want to give some thoughts on what they need to evolve into here. Because it is a different world, right? And I think we need to start to look at things, from the impact of number one, how does AI impact our bottom line? Like, I think those numbers aren't fully known yet, right? So from a KPI standpoint, I think that is really important. The other thing that I think, we need to look at is how much of our agents using AI, and what is the benefit that we're finding or not finding, right? I think there's a lot of benefit that we could be finding, but again, we just listened to my chatbot is great.ai company, right? And they tell us all these amazing things. But how do we really measure if AI is having an impact on our bottom line and also on the customer experience? I want to talk about maybe some of the KPIs today that that have to kind of deal with that. And again, how do we kind of maybe merge some of those old school IVR metrics, right? Of containment within the IVR with how much of an agent is being used, right? Can we massage those a little bit, right? To kind of bring them up to the AI standards, but still understand kind of there's a lot of similarities, I think, to kind of how we did things with that self-service model to kind of how we're looking at this kind of advanced self-service model with AI. So again, we look at things in today's, and I'm saying today's, most contact centers maybe have a little bit of AI in them. They're starting down that road, but most contact centers are still, human being staffed, right? So we're still looking at things like average handle time, right? The average duration of a customer to complete a customer interaction. We're looking at average speed of answer, service levels. We're looking at first call resolution, occupancy rate, right? The percentage of time that agents are spending on contacts versus available, right? Transfer rate, all of those kind of things, right? Then we look at our today's quality metrics, right? Do AI quality metrics have to change, right? Looking at things like, your CSAT and your NPS and a customer effort score, those kind of things that we talk about today, and just your overall kind of just QA score from your form. Like all of those things are kind of how we've been doing things today. And again, how do we evolve this? So I think a couple of different things is the first thing is we have to look at kind of AI efficiency and effectiveness metrics. And this is kind of the core of before we were looking at agent behaviors on calls, how quickly they answered, first call resolution, right? And now we're kind of taking those type of metrics and kind of massaging them a little bit to turn them into things where we can see how effective our AI is, right? So again, if we have basically a containment rate, a virtual agent containment rate, right? The percentage of interactions fully resolved by a virtual agent, by a bot without any human interaction, right? So again, and I just kind of wrote down what that looks like from a, how do you figure that out, right? What is the math behind that, right? And it's just kind of the interactions resolved by virtual agents divided by your total interactions, right? Nothing rocket science there. So that gives you a benchmark of kind of what percentage of things are being kind of resolved by your virtual agents. We've kind of had that metric there. That's kind of a normal self-service metric. But I think, again, when we start to see dashboards, right, these are certain things that I think need to evolve and kind of move on to that dashboard, right? We have kind of an AI to human, an escalation rate, right? What is the percentage of interactions that begin with a virtual agent, but they have to require some type of human escalation, right? And I think that percentage is really important and things that we need to start to look at. And we can drill deeper into then the whys. We can kind of get into analytics to see if there's certain things that just are not doing very well in being contained with our voice bots. But I think that's a huge number and metric to have. And again, these are things to ask if you're going AI and you got a chatbot company. These are things you need to start to ask them. What percentage can I expect? With this, I think a healthy starting point, if you're at 25 to maybe 40%, right? Maybe 35% of those calls that are coming to a human being. I think that's probably a normal rate for today's kind of AI and for where things are at. So again, that's kind of a little bit of a benchmark for you. We talk about kind of virtual agent resolution times, right? And that's kind of our average handle time, but for a virtual agent, right? So how much time is that customer taking with that agent? And again, I guess it should be significantly lower, right? If we're getting all that information, I don't know. Maybe those are some things that I think are really, really interesting and important numbers, right? To see if whose interactions are actually shorter. Now, the virtual agents are going to be less expensive, so maybe they could be a little bit longer, but then how does that affect your customer experience or your NPS? Like all that stuff we're still kind of figuring out. But I think that these are the numbers. That's a huge number to start to track, right? And again, that's your average handle time per agent. And then I think the other thing is to look at how are you QAing your AI? Right? Nobody talks about that, right? Everybody likes to talk about, the AI thing, there's hallucinations and it can give bad responses. And we don't have a really good KMS and all of this information, but no one is actually QAing, right, their AI. And what is kind of the AI accuracy score? And again, I think you can use an auto QA platform, right, to either randomly sample or sample all of those. But I think it's really important that you're giving out the right information. And when you're doing AI at scale with thousands and thousands of customer interactions, how do you know if it's telling the customers the right stuff, right? Without you kind of looking at that. So again, that's another metric. We would QA our agents. Why wouldn't we QA the AI? And we should be able to fine tune that thing so it's really crazy accurate, and we're getting better at that. But I think that's something that, we don't really talk enough about. So again, I think that those are some core AI metrics that kind of just look at the efficiency and look at how well you have your setup, right? Is it doing the job that it is supposed to do? Is it handling your agent or your customers? It's not really transferring too many out. It's containing most of your issues. It's doing it in kind of a relatively quick manner compared to how your maybe a human agent would do it. That could be good. That could be bad depending on what you're looking at. But I think that those are some things. The other thing that we want to look at is how much money are we saving, right, with AI? What is the impact that AI is having on our agents? What is AI having on our customer experience from the different tools that we're using? So again, not saying that we're using all virtual agents, but if we're using agent assist, right, we're using other things that are helping our agents. What impact is that having? And again, we want to measure that, right? Because we don't want to just listen to our AI chatbot companies telling us this stuff, but how do we want to start measuring it? And I think, here's some thoughts that I have on this, right? Having a kind of an AI assist utilization rate, right? How frequently, right, are agents using those AI tools during an interaction, right? And I think that's important, right? To see, number one, is that tool actually providing value? And number two, maybe our agents really need to be educated in some other things as well. But I think that that's a really cool stat to start to know, right? How often are your agents utilizing agent assist? How often are they actually utilizing, right? And again, I think that goes beyond just having agent assist pop information. But I mean, was it popping the proper information and being able to start to track that with agents, I think is, really, really important, right? Looking at kind of AI assisted handle time reductions, right? So if I'm using an AI tool like an agent assist, how much time am I saving, right? Because if I'm not saving any time, is there a cost savings there? Is it worth the tool? I mean, maybe there's some other things going on with that too. But again, I think, with most agent assist tools, you want a 15 to 20 to 25%, right, reduction, right? And maybe that's extreme depending on how long your call is, right? But again, for me, I would only do agent assist on my really difficult calls that maybe have a ton of, like a toy company, right, that has a ton of different SKUs that there's no way that a human being could possibly memorize all this stuff, and they end up kind of searching for it. I think that's when agent assist can really come into effect, and you can have really, really huge, reductions in handle time. But if you just have a basic, somebody just wants to know their account balance, there's not going to be a lot of reduction in time based on agent assist. So I think, looking at those things is really, really important to kind of start to measure the impact of what that will have. And again, I think, the knowledge retrieval time is something that kind of we talk about here is it worth it? And that kind of goes back to this. Is an agent assist tool, is it worth what we're doing, right? Are we looking up a lot of information and we're taking a lot of time to do that? And if we are, then what is that time? And then we can kind of calculate the savings that we'll get from an agent assist type tool. So I think, doing your homework a little bit ahead of time and starting to kind of measure some of this stuff out is really, really important. And again, just looking at kind of an agent augmentation value, right? Looking at an overall, what is the impact of these AI tools, right? Kind of looking at quality improvements, looking at your time improvements, looking at first call resolution, right? Kind of having a snapshot of this. And again, that's something that I think we need to hash out. But again, we need to start to talk in terms of how is AI affecting the customer experience? And I need some darn good data for it, right? I don't want to just have, hey, this kind of does this kind of does that. So as an industry, I think we need to start to think about these things a little bit more. Right. And I think when you talk about quality metrics, I see a lot of organizations out there that are just kind of giving some overall summaries and calling that quality. And I think that that's it's a good thing, right? To have here's kind of some coaching tips for the agent. Here's kind of the summary of the call, what happened. Here's some ways that the agent can improve upon. But I still think that QA is QA, and we need to get into the depths of the call, right? And we can get deeper than ever, right? Looking at auto QA tools. And the QA tools that not just give these summaries, but then again, like our tool that goes question by question by question, scores it. Did the agent do what they're supposed to do? Tells you why, right? So I think, looking at auto QA accuracy is a vastly massive thing, right? You shouldn't be dealing with anybody that's not in that 95, 96% accurate, right? Looking at, the summary, right? Making sure that all of that is accurate, making sure that, the kind of the whys of a customer or of an agent. Why did they do that? And having that tool be able to tell you those type of things, right? You always want things that you couldn't get with the human being, right? And you want them to get them at scale. And so I think, looking at what is the coverage of your auto QA? What is the accuracy of it? And that starts to really have an impact in a change and shift of what is happening, in your contact center. And the other really cool thing with auto QAs is why I think it's the summarization only doesn't really paint the picture, is because you can get deep into analytics. You can get deep into why customers are canceling. Are they saying you're a competitor's name, right? Getting deep into kind of these really cool marketing and analytics tools and questions that kind of have such a huge impact. And I think looking to start to measure the impact of what auto QA can do from even an analytics standpoint, I think is really, really, really important. The other thing that I think we start to look at is sentiment shifts, right? We've been scoring sentiment, we've been scoring customer and agent sentiment scores. But right, looking at shifts, looking at, what agents, do they start with really negative customers, but do a really good job at the end of the call of turning that into a positive sentiment customer? All of these type of things that we're drilling deeper, right, into what we can score from a QA standpoint and from an AI standpoint. But so how do we start to utilize, not just what agent behavior is, but kind of the end result of the customer experience, kind of the end of the journey for the customer, and start to kind of give that some scores to it. I don't have the answer yet for how that looks, but these are things that I'm thinking about and kind of how do we score these things using AI, right? Based on kind of the shift of what is happening during calls with the kind of the intent of the agent and the outcome of the question or the outcome of the kind of the overall experience. And then I think, the last thing is we have to again look at just impacts of strategic business impacts, right? What are, if we take all of these AI things that we've done, right, and start to give dollar amounts to them. And I think we're starting to get closer with that as we start to measure and see impacts of, first call resolution, impacts of handle time, impacts of just not having as many agents, right? But really thinking through, a cost per resolution, right? We can do that very easily. How much did it cost for each of these impacts of the agent, and how much does it cost if we used a virtual agent and they solve the issues, right? And then how much leakage do we have on top of that, right? So there's a lot to this, but I think, we're starting to get to the point where, we can start to measure things differently with AI, and then with understanding those measurements, take what we did as a human, with humans, and kind of correlate them and see what is really the impact of what we're doing when we look at quality, when we look at sentiment, when we look at things like CSAT and NPS, when we look at the overall cost of our contact center, right? Are these having an impact that is making things better, or is things staying the same and we're just paying a little bit more, or do we not have the tool fully optimized? And I think all of these things can kind of, have a little bit of an impact. So again, hopefully that kind of gets your brain thinking a little bit of what is coming, what you should be looking at. Again, these are all kind of metrics that aren't really hashed out yet, right? They're not like a KPI and a service level and you're going to see them on a dashboard, but I think they're things that you could do internally and things that we're starting to think about here at Expedia and at AutoQA to really show impacts of AI and see if it's really making the difference that everybody's saying it is. Thank you guys. We'll talk next week.